The way I think about a TAMP is sort of a three-legged solution. You have the sort of paperwork, onboarding, documentation side as one leg of the stool. You've got the investment side as a second leg of the stool. And then the third leg is really sort of the trading and rebalancing, the portfolio management leg of the stool. So, with the TAMP, you get all three legs of the stool, and you have to sort of accept what all those legs are.
Welcome, Model FAs. David DeSalle here, CEO of Model FA and your host of the Model FA podcast. And today we are joined by Eric Stein, who is a CFA and partner with East Bay Investment Solutions. And part of the reason why I was intrigued and excited to bring Eric on the show is similar to one of the services that we offer here at Model FA, being fractional CMOs for firms, helping them with their strategy and tactical aspects of marketing. Eric and his firm hold themselves out as fractional CIOs. So without further ado, let's welcome Eric Stein. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. Appreciate you hosting me on your podcast.
I got you. I know you're getting over a little cough, so just quick disclaimer for everyone. We'll try and play the game with the mute button, but if you hear a cough or two, we didn't want to have that be a cause for rescheduling.
Yeah, I do apologize. I thought after 3 weeks I'd be gone with it already, but it's been lingering. My apologies.
Well, I will say, because where are you located again?
Charlotte.
In Charlotte. So,
Yeah.
um, when I was in Massachusetts, which the seasons are uh, more aggressive than Charlotte is, but I feel like every year I'd be like, oh, I'm sick, and I'd take like cold medicine. And then after a couple of weeks, nothing changed. And I'm like, I think this is allergies. And I
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
allergy medicine. So you may be fighting that battle of which one is it?
Yeah, I've been taking it all. It's been a nice little cocktail the last couple of weeks, and nothing seems to be working, unfortunately.
There you go. Well, cool. Let's get a sense of your background before we get into what you do, how you support advisors, some of the things that you see in working with these folks. How'd you get into this industry in the first place? I imagine you didn't graduate from school and start this company. There was probably a step or 10 in between. So what was that like?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, what you think you're going to do and what actually happens in real life is can be quite different. When I graduated from college, and geez, it was 1994 to date myself. I didn't know what an RIA was. The RIA industry was probably very small at that point. Most of the finance jobs that my friends and I were getting were more corporate finance or banking or things like that. There really wasn't anything in the advisory space. So when I left school, I actually went to work for a large bank in sort of a rotational program where you could figure out, go in different rotations throughout the year, figure out what worked, post for a role, and sort of stay there. And I just realized that the role wasn't for me, the bank wasn't for me, the city I was in wasn't for me, and decided to make a change. So I wound up getting an opportunity, about a year after I left school at a small asset management firm in Midtown Manhattan, which was kind of the last place I thought I'd end up, but it was just a really good opportunity. So I jumped at it. And I was there for a couple of years. I was doing, composite construction for those performance, calculator people, helping and supporting, the portfolio managers and just doing sort of odd jobs for, what was a relatively small firm at the time. I wound up, again, looking for another opportunity because it was a small firm and I wanted to see what else I could do and see what else is out there. And I wound up looking for jobs for a very long period of time just to kind of see. I wanted the right fit. I just didn't want to move from job to job to job. And wound up getting an opportunity at Goldman Sachs Asset Management when GSAM at that time was quite young, was still relatively new. Goldman was still a private company when I joined, became public, I think, the year after I joined. And that was really what jump-started my career, quite frankly, was just the ability to be in a very good organization with outstanding people with lots of opportunity and growth. So, it was one of those places. I was there for 8 years. I had multiple roles, multiple hats, got promoted multiple times. Just had an amazing opportunity to be surrounded again by some fantastic people, some great mentors that I had. Learned a ton. I was able to earn my CFA while I was there. Just a great experience. So, fast forward to what, I guess 2005, had lived through New York after 9/11, and through 9/11 was starting a family, and realized that, commuting several hours a day, working long hours a day wasn't conducive to the lifestyle that I wanted. And my wife and I decided to just stop, do something a little bit different. So we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where we are now. And I wound up getting an opportunity as the lead investment professional for what then was about a $2 billion national RIA. So, led that part of the organization for about 11 years, ultimately becoming the CIO, helped the firm grow to about 6 billion. And then, upon leaving that firm, essentially found Mario not too long after, in terms of looking for, what I wanted to do, which was more, I liked the CIO type of role, but I didn't want to do it for a really large organization anymore. I wanted to have more of an impact on, different types of advisors. So what Mario was doing already with East Bay and the OCIO role for, several RIAs already, just thought it was a great way to take my skill set, his skill set, what we both enjoy doing, and building something great together. And that's what we've been doing together since 2018.
Love it. I remember, so I was in Manhattan, gosh, at this point, maybe 7 years ago. And I've been there a handful of times, but this trip in particular, I went out there to speak at a firm. And at the end of the speaking event, the guy who hired me was like, "Hey, let's go, grab some dinner." So we went and grabbed some dinner, but on the way, it was like a subway, ride away. And we're in our suits. It's in July. It's hot.
Hot.
And so Subway comes by and it's packed, like sardines packed. And I was like, "Oh man, we'll wait for the next one." He goes, "Oh no, there's room." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? There's room." And so we're like going in there, and I'm just like, "Oh," like I don't do like the shoulder to shoulder stuff. Like it's just not, it's much. So too much for me. But I would imagine, although it was a great experience at Goldman, probably excited to have a little bit more real estate in North Carolina than you did in Manhattan commuting.
Yeah, it was a great place to live when I was in my, mid to late 20s. I was single, really didn't have a lot of time to myself, with working as long as the hours I did. And especially when I was also studying for the CFA, 6 months a year for 3 years, that takes up a lot of time in addition to the work schedule. So it's not like I had a ton of free time. But it's an amazing city. There's a lot going on, especially if you're in finance. I don't regret my decision to live there at all. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the subways in the summertime, they are hot, they're steamy, they are packed. You have to really be comfortable getting close to people. And then in the wintertime, everybody's got their big heavy coats and scarves, and it's still a million degrees because the heat's on and everybody's, got too many clothes on. And trying to get into a packed subway with bulky clothes is another adventure in itself. So it's the subway rides, New York is just different, walking through the streets and the sidewalks with mass amounts of people. If you're not used to it, it can be a lot, but it's like anything else, you just kind of adapt and adjust.
For sure. I'm curious. You said your partner's name is Mario.
Mario Nardone, yep.
So I'm always curious to know how people meet and if it's serendipitous or if it was extremely intentional. Did you seek each other out? Like, how did you guys come to meet? Like, you were new to Charlotte, or new-ish to Charlotte, perhaps. Um, like, how did you guys connect then to the point of actually, becoming business partners?
Yeah, it's a great question. The reality is, I moved to Charlotte in 2015 or 2005. I
Oh,
met
so you
Mario.
had been there for
I've
13
been in Charlotte
years.
for quite some
Okay.
time. Yeah, yeah, this has been home base for a while. But really what happened was, I was looking for what I wanted to do next. And I realized that I didn't really want to go back to the corporate world. I wanted to do something I thought more entrepreneurial and, had been talking about doing the OCIO thing for the advisor space like we're doing today and maybe starting something on my own. And I would just talk to, a couple friends in the industry and suggest, hey, here's what I'm thinking, shoot some holes in it. Tell me why this is crazy. Tell me why you think it can succeed. Just give me your thoughts. And, I had one person say, hey, have you heard of Mario Nardone? I think he's doing something similar. I think you guys would get along. The first time I heard his name, I was like, nope, haven't heard of him, and just kind of, ignored it, frankly, a little bit. The second time, I think the third time I heard his name, I was like, maybe I ought to reach out to this guy.
Huh.
So we reached out, had a couple conversations. And it was, hey, here's what I'm thinking of doing. Here's what you're doing. Did Mario even want a partner? Did he want to grow? What was he looking for? And we spent probably 6 to 9 months just having conversations. When you're a partner with somebody, it's another marriage. So do we like each other? Do we respect one another? Can we complement each other? Can we work well together? How are we going to come to agreement when we disagree? All those things you have to come together as a business partner are all conversations we tried to have very, very early on to make sure if we were going to do it, that we were confident that we could succeed together. And in the background, I was also doing some work for him on the side, just sort of as a 1099 employee, again, to make sure that I understood what he was looking for. He understood what my style was of how to do things. Again, just to make sure before we became business partners officially that we could work together and succeed. So, fast forward to October of 2018, we realized that, yeah, this was going to work. This was something we wanted to do together. And, yeah, we've been partners since, but it was pretty serendipitous. It was just a couple of people that I had reached out to and connected with and happened to also know him. And fortunately for us, he lives in Charleston. I live in Charlotte. We both work out of our homes. So we see each other, a few times a year. We'll visit each other and spend a couple of days together on an East Bay retreat. We're actually doing one next week.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so we still do get together, but we're talking every day. We're texting every day. There's pretty constant communication.
And how long had he been in business before you guys started chatting? You remember?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, East Bay had been around for several years beforehand, but it was really it actually had started as a traditional high net worth advisory practice. It was a traditional RIA,
Oh,
and he was doing what he would kind of affectionately call planning light. And he's also a CFA and enjoyed the investment work. And he realized that there were other advisors in the Charleston area that were looking for investment support. So while he was building out and starting his RIA, excuse me, he was also sort of starting the OCIO work for other local advisors and realized that he actually liked that part of the business more than the financial advisor side, the advisory practice side. So eventually sold off the high net worth side to another advisor and focused solely on OCIO, which we've been doing since 2018.
I think there's a lot of cool lessons from that story that I want to just uh, siphon off for a second, and then I'll go into the next question. So, one is you had an idea, you had a thought, and you sought feedback from people. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? I'm building this, and or I'm thinking about building this. And there are probably some ideas that were shared with you, both supportive and constructive, I would imagine. Maybe some folks playing devil's advocate. But they also, what you did with them, which is interesting, is you activated their reticular activating system. And for those of you listening who may not be familiar with what your RAS is, your reticular activating system, it's essentially your brain's filter for relevant information. So like the example I use where people are like, oh, I know what that is. Think about the last car you bought. Well, when you drive off the lot and in the coming days, you look around, you're like, man, everyone has this car. They were already there. It's just now, being brought to the forefront because it's now relevant to you. So what's cool about that is you start having these conversations and then people are like, oh, wait a second. Mario does something similar. You should connect. So that's pretty cool. And then I also really like, and I think that in my opinion, before, depending on the role, of course, but before you hire anyone to your firm, during the interview process, having some sort of a test project and see what they do. And as you mentioned, hey, let's kind of, you use the marriage example. So let's date first, right? Let's
Mhm.
go break some bread, maybe. And you're in that 1099 role. And then once you realize, hey, this is actually enjoyable, we communicate well, we're both, on our A game. Cool. Let's get married. So there was just those couple things I wanted to extract. I will then go and ask. So help help me and our listeners understand. So one thing that you were very clear on when we connected for the intro call is that you're not a TAMP, right? So I guess, can you help paint a picture when, whether fractional CIO, outsource CIO, whatever we want to call it. My mind initially goes towards a TAMP, but you're like, no, 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 we're not a TAMP. Here's what we do. Can you kind of put your offering and like a TAMP's offering against the wall and kind of go through from a high level, like what the
Sure.
differences are?
Yeah, and again, there's a TAMP can be an absolutely wonderful solution for the right situation. TAMP it exists as a solution because it can be a good one for a number of advisors. The way I think about a TAMP is sort of a three-legged solution. You have the sort of paperwork, onboarding, documentation side as one leg of the stool. You've got the investment side as a second leg of the stool. And then the third leg is really sort of the trading and rebalancing, the portfolio management leg of the stool. So, with the TAMP, you get all three legs of the stool, and you have to sort of accept what all those legs are. So whatever the investment solution is, that's what you get. You sort of get what you get, and that's it. You don't really have the ability to customize. You don't have the ability to have a lot of input in what it is. The solution is there. It has to fit for all of your clients, and that's where it is. Same thing with trading and rebalancing. Whatever their rebalancing schedule is, or however they trade, again, that's what you get, and that's the solution. What we do on the OCIO space at East Bay is we're focused on just that one leg of the stool, the investment side. But it's customized. So I don't have an East Bay solution that all of our clients have. It's going to be really customized for what each of our clients want and need. So, there are going to be certain similarities between our clients. We want to make sure there's an investment fit and that our investment fit aligns with our clients. Otherwise, what we do can't be leveraged and it's not scalable. And if we don't agree from an investment philosophy perspective with our clients, and they don't agree with us, they're not going to leverage our materials and our data, and the relationship sort of doesn't work as well. So we make sure there's an investment fit, but there's not one size fits all solution like you're going to get in a TAMP. So some of our clients may, do things a little bit differently than another client. Some clients might want a little more alternatives than another client. Some might want to use more SMAs than another client. We have the ability to support them in a way that fits their practice and fits their needs and can be very customized and targeted in terms of how we do that for each individual client.
So it sounds like I just want to make sure that I'm tracking. So it sounds like there's trade-offs, right? TAMP is uh, just like what it stands for, it's turnkey, right? And it's all offloaded, but you have to fit in a particular box with maybe a hair of customization to a degree, but a very small degree at that, if at all. Um, Whereas it's not as turnkey as it relates to, hey, we take everything off your plate, but it's incredibly customized. And I have a point of clarification. Is it customized to the firm, or does it get customized down to the level of the particular client at that firm if that particular scenario is maybe different than the other clients that they serve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're going to customize at the firm level to start. So, we're going to help, at a base level, the advisors we work with, they're going to have their models and the managers they use to implement the products they use to implement those models. That's sort of a base case. But again, you can go to a lot of asset managers and get models and managers for free. You don't need to pay East Bay to get that. So it's a base service of what we provide, but there's certainly a lot of other value that we're providing to our clients, above and beyond just the models. But certainly, they're going to get the models at the firm level, but if there's a client that you're working with, a large enough client or a complex client, maybe they have a concentrated position, and you come to us and say, hey, I've got this client, they have this need, I'm trying to figure out how to help them. Of course, we're going to help you at the client level too. It's not, I don't see your clients, I don't know their names, I don't have access to your custodial account numbers, I'm not trading on your behalf, I'm not doing any of that for you. But if you come to me and say, hey, I've got this client, here's the need, here's what their portfolio looks like, I'm trying to do X, can you help me do X? We're going to help you for the individual client. Absolutely.
What about, are there ever circumstances where, let's say, I'm an advisor and I'm like, hey, what you just said is exactly what I think the client wants, based on what I shared with you. But you just said that so eloquently. Can you hop on this client call with me? Is that an option when they engage with you, or are you empowering them to be the face of that conversation?
We can do both. So we can certainly empower the advisor to have that conversation, and that's totally fine. But if an advisor says, hey, I really like what you said, or having you on that call, they're a very sophisticated advisor or client, they're very technical, and having your expertise on the call will be helpful for us. We will get on a prospect call with you. We'll be on a Zoom call with you. If it's important enough, we'll actually show up in person. So that's totally fine. We go to our clients, our advisor clients, we've gone to their client appreciation events, and we're part of the team. So they absolutely look at us as a value add to the offering that they're providing to their clients. And as much as they want us to be forward facing, we're happy to do that. And as much as they want us to be behind the scenes and not introduce us as part of their solution, that's fine too. It's really up to the advisor of how they want to promote their relationship with eastbay. We don't force that on them.
And would you go as far as to, so if I'm thinking about this, I'm like, okay, cool, you're an extension of my team, like kind of when I need you in those one-off scenarios. So it feels like you're the CIO down the hall, so to speak.
Yep.
Are you able, and I don't know the compliance rules around this, but are you able to appear on their website to show depth on their team, or is that a no-no?
We actually do. If you Googled my name, you'll see me on a variety of our client websites. There are some compliance rules about it. You're not allowed to refer to us as a CIO, and you have to be very clear that we are a partner or an employee of eastbay. We're not an employee of your firm. But that's the guidance we've been given, and we've had several advisors go through exams and have been fine. So that is sort of how we've continued to build out, the marketing efforts that we're doing from, the advisor's perspective. They're able to put us on their websites confidently. And, again, if you're a 4 or 5 person RIA, and now you have access and exposure to another resource, a CFA with great experience, whether it's myself and or Mario on your website, you can expand the resources that you have, and now you're competing against other RAs in your local area that doesn't have that investment expertise. It just adds more depth to your firm, more resources to your firm, more confidence for your prospects and clients. One of the questions we have gotten in the past when we're talking to a potential client is, well, what do you think my clients will think if I tell them that I'm no longer responsible for their investments, that I've hired an external firm to help? And we kind of laugh because the answer is your clients are going to say, awesome, thank you. We've wondered how you've been doing this all yourself. But anyway, like, how are you the CEO of your firm, the lead advisor, the lead financial planner, the lead investment person, doing all the compliance and marketing? There's no way you could do it all. So now that you've actually outsourced the investment piece, which a lot of clients find to be important, they have greater confidence in what you're doing. They love the fact that you're growing and investing in your firm. Your clients are going to be very, very happy.
And what's the ideal? So it sounds like you're more on the consulting side, but also tactical as it relates to client conversations, that you're open and willing to have prospect conversations. But you're not actually necessarily doing the things as it relates to trading, rebalancing, paperwork, etc. So what's sort of the ideal setup, right? You have the advisor, the owner of the firm, you have you guys as the outsourced CIOs. Do you find that a lot of times the advisor is doing that trading and rebalancing? Do they have like a director of investments level person? Is it a like who's actually doing the things beyond the guidance that you're providing? Like just help me understand that hierarchy or that org chart, if you will.
Yeah, it really just depends on the size of the firm, David. So some of the firms will have, established protocols and things like Orion or iRebal, and have or Tamarack for trading. They've got their rules and policies set up, and that works great for them. We actually, you talk about outsourcing investments, and we talked about sort of the three legs of the stool of the TAMP. You can actually outsource trading and rebalancing as well. And there are several firms that we know of that successfully work with our clients as well that do outsource trading. So, if you think about it that way, you have sort of a solid line from the advisor to us. You've got a solid line from the advisor to the outsourced trading. And there's sort of a dotted line from us to the trader. I don't have discretion. I can't direct the trader to do anything, but I can be on those calls. I can help, draft trading guidelines and documentation and parameters. If we change anything in the model, again, I can't direct the outsourced trader to make trades, but they can at least be informed of what some changes are coming and why those changes are coming and things like that. So depending upon how the firm is set up, you can either do it internally. Some firms don't want to do that and they outsource trading very successfully. It's just again, how much do you want to focus internally on what you're good at versus outsourcing to other people that may have more expertise in certain areas?
So I'm sure that the first part of the answer to my next question is, well, it depends. But if we can try to, if we can try to be a little bit more specific to try and cast a vision, and I have someone like a particular firm in mind that this may be relevant for, which is why I'm asking this question. So, is there an inflection point where it's like, hey, you guys are at a point to where you should take this in house now, like you've grown beyond us, or is it, hey, if they want to continue to outsource this, it doesn't matter if they're 5 billion, as opposed to 500 million or 50 million or whatever that is. Is there a point in which you're like, hey, you should probably bring on your own CIO, or does that not matter?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. I mean, the reality is we actually have a client or two that actually have their own CIO. And what we do is actually support the CIO. So we don't have to
Mm.
be the lead investment person. We can take a support role as well. So in the one firm I'm thinking about, they have an established, very experienced, very confident CIO. He does a great job, but he's one person and they have a lot of things to do in a large and growing firm. So what we do is we do some of the heavy lifting on some of the projects he just doesn't have the time to do himself. So you can have a CIO and also outsource some of that support. I'd say most of our clients are I'll say more of the typical variety where it's the advisor, I'll say 3 to 5 people at the firm and just want the added investment expertise that we provide at East Bay. Really what we're providing is a couple of main things. We're providing time back in your day. You don't have the time as an advisor to do all these different things. And with the investment landscape changing, new products coming out, wholesaler calls, articles to write, articles to read, all these things that happen on an investment basis, you just don't have the time to do it. So if we can give you all that time back in your day to focus on what matters most to you, that's a win for our clients. The other thing we're providing is peace of mind. We are investment professionals. This is what we do all day, every day. So we're just giving the advisor more confidence to be able to say, okay, East Bay's got it covered. I still have discretion. I can still own the decision, but I don't have to do all the heavy lifting and the work to get to that decision. That's awesome. And then the third thing is if you just want to, continue growing, if you want to go after larger clients and you might want to go deeper into alternatives or into other SMAs or other types of vehicles or structures, and you just don't have again, the time or the energy to go into these other areas, this is what we can help you with. So it just gives advisors, again, flexibility to focus on what matters most to them and not have to worry about having to do it all themselves.
What I like about this so far is it seems like just to confirm what we've already said slash alluded to earlier, which is, the TAMP, it's like, all right, here's our models, right? Take it or leave it. It sounds like, you have certain philosophies per se, but you're you can sort of position it as like, hey, let's have a think tank. Let's talk about this stuff. Let's figure out and right size this for your firm, generally speaking, and then get more specific for that particular client. Because let's say, for example, the average client of the firm is, million, 2 million bucks, and then all of a sudden they come across someone who sold a business and they have $20 million. You may not want to toss them in the model portfolio that was constructed for that $1 million person. You may want to be a little bit more creative. So it allows them to, again, have that CIO down the hall type of feel where they can knock on the proverbial door and say, hey, Eric, what are your thoughts on this? What can we do? How do we win this case? Is that a fair representation?
That's perfectly fair. And I'd go a step further too, is, as an advisor, it's likely that you're getting emails from your clients. They're reading articles in the Wall Street Journal or wherever they're reading articles online these days, and they're seeing things sold to them and pitched to them or these great ideas, whether it's gold or whatever other investment, Bitcoin, investment du jour that is coming across their plate. They're going to email their advisor, and their advisor is going to get that email, and the advisor has to respond at some point. But does the advisor want to take the time to respond? Do they want to dig into this and respond deeply? Or if they work with eBay, what they can do is they forward us the email and say, Eric, Mario, please help me respond to this email. We respond back to the advisor. We never respond back to the client. And the advisor can do one of two things. They can either copy and paste our response and send it to their client and say, here's what I think, which is totally fine. Or they can copy and paste it to their email and say, hey, I spoke with Eric and Mario, our chief investment strategists, and here's what they think, and I support this view. And they can do it that way. But either way, they're not having to write it. They're not having to do the research. They basically can, again, respond to the client, have confidence that they know what the answer is, and move on. And they don't have to focus on sort of all those little details. So it's just, again, a really value-added service to know that you have the support and the backing. If you look at the billion-dollar plus firms, several billion-dollar firms, they have a CIO. Why do they have a CIO? Because the investments are the part that make the plan go. It's an important role. But for a 300 or $400 million RIA, they probably don't have the need for a full-time CIO. And finding somebody that wants to be a CIO but can also do trading and also wants to win business and prospect for clients, it's a very rare role to find. So if you can outsource your investments in an affordable way, and still have ownership and discretion over it, it's a really attractive solution for our clients.
Well, the other thing I think about too is, and this is a similar value prop to our fractional CMO offering as one of the things that we do, where it's, I'm speaking generally here, but like a quality in-house CIO, you're looking at $225,000 to $300,000 base plus bonus and an equity structure as well. And I would guess that you're not cheap, but you're still a fraction of that. So and if you don't need that person full time, it's a perfect scenario. And I would imagine too that you guys are positioned to be able to scale alongside them as they get bigger and busier and have more complex scenarios that they come across. So similar to our CMO offering, it's like, hey, you can spend 200, 250 on a CMO that understands strategy and the tactical side of things in our industry,
Yeah.
which is rare on the marketing side, or you can pay us a fraction of that and we help you with all that stuff. Oh, and by the way, we work exclusively in this industry. So I imagine our value propositions, different parts of the business, but similar-ish as it relates to how we position ourselves in front of people.
Absolutely. It's very similar, David. And, you talk about sort of the fee structure, we're flat fee based. So, our advisors are mainly AUM based. So if you think about what they're doing, if you've got a $300 million practice, markets go up, you win new business, you become a $400 million practice. Our fee essentially stays the same. It becomes a smaller piece of a larger pie for you. So it's a really attractive for the advisor because, again, they continue to grow and do better financially. our piece of the pie shrinks as a piece of their overall pie, which is attractive to them. And I think one of the advisors I've worked with for over 5 years now, he was, one of our first clients. He'll tell you, hey, I've tripled my business since I've started working with East Bay. And he'll also say, I can't point to any single client that came on because I have this East Bay relationship, which on the surface, doesn't sound like a great sales point for East Bay. But he'll also say, I couldn't have grown without them. They've just given me the confidence. They've given me the flexibility. They've given me the support that I've been able to grow at this pace and at this level and add on new people because I haven't had to do all these things. I haven't had to worry about all these things the same way I would if I didn't have that relationship. So that's really meaningful to us. That just means that, again, we're a part of the success story, which is for us the best thing we can ask for.
Well, Eric, I think this makes all the sense in the world. And as I alluded to a few minutes ago, we'll talk offline post recording, but I have someone in mind that I think this is very relevant to, that you can be let's just say, a much needed breath of fresh air to allow them to focus on rainmaking, which they love to do, and not getting and drug in the weeds with having to handle this stuff too. But before we wrap up, one of the things that we ask all of our guests is a book that's had an impact on them, and it's our way of distilling a reading list for folks. And when I saw your pick, I was like, I wonder where he's going to take this. So you chose The Diary of Anne Frank. And I'm curious to know, like, the impact that book has had on you. And for those of us who may not have read that, why should we consider reading it?
Yeah, I think it's just my background. I happen to be Jewish, so Anne Frank was a girl growing up in Amsterdam, during World War II, and her family had to be hidden in an attic for several years. For those that don't know that story, in order to survive what at the time was a Nazi Germany invasion, and they lived in that attic for several years before they were ultimately discovered and taken to a concentration camp. So, just growing up the way I did, as a Jew, and understanding what happened in the Holocaust. And it was just a book that was given to me sort of and knew about as a very young age, and just kind of had an impact of knowing as a child what it could be like in that kind of experience. And then even last year, my family and I happened to travel to Amsterdam on vacation and went to visit her house. And when you go towards the attic and you see the stairway, and if you've ever seen the movie, there's a scene where like the door opens and somebody has to walk down the stairway to close the door for fear of being discovered. You just realize what that could have been like for several years for a little girl and her family, and for her to have the courage to write her story for the years that she did. I just thought it was an amazing, amazing story.
Well, it helps, I would imagine, because I know the story. I haven't read the book, but I would imagine, and particularly for you, given your background, that it offers great perspective, and it's probably a weird mix of, how should I say, like, being angry but grateful, at the same time, like angry that like something like that happened, but grateful that, oh wow, I'm not living through that at the moment, so
Yeah,
it
and you
offers
realize
good
that
perspective.
you can be resourceful, you can be resilient, you can go through very difficult times and still survive. With family, with faith, with support of friends. It takes a village. So it was again a good reminder of a lot of those concepts as well.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you sharing. For those of you who tuned in today, we really appreciate your time. Before we do sign off, Eric, if they're intrigued, interested, curious, open to chatting with you, where should they go?
Yeah, I would direct them to our website, eastbayis.com. And you'll find our contact information there. If you're curious about more about what an OCIO is, we have a dozen or so blog posts that talk about the benefits of an OCIO or why you might want to work with an OCIO. So that's there. And we've also just recently launched an OCIO quiz. So if you want to make sure that an OCIO is right for you, you can register to take the quiz. It takes a few minutes. It's all online. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and that can help you again determine if the OCO direction is right for you in your practice. Reach out to us, email us, you get us on LinkedIn, call us. We'd love to connect with you if you're interested in talking.
Awesome. Well, Eric, appreciate it. And for those of you who tuned into today's episode, appreciate you. If you would be so kind as to leave us a review, share this with a friend, we'd appreciate that. But until next time, have a great day.